Hey guys, Monica here from All Geek to Me, and welcome to the very first episode of Believe With Me, an American Gods recap. We first get introduced to Mr. Ibis, one of the gods from Egyptian mythology. He's sort of our narrator throughout the series. Starts off the episode kind of telling how Mr. Wednesday is like one of the first gods to come to the shores of America. It's a pretty bloody battle. I feel bad for pretty much all the Vikings that came and brought Odin with them, but we don't see Odin, aka Mr. Wednesday, right away. We then get moved to see our protagonist, Shadow Moon, who's fucking hot, but that's not the point. He's in prison with his cellmate, Loki. For those of you that, I don't think they said his name, but that's who it is, it's Loki. And he's about to get out of prison. Shadow's close to getting released from prison, but then his wife Laura dies, so he gets out a little early on that fun technicality. Sorry, I know, but his journey back to Eagle Point, where he's from, is an interesting one. In the airport, after fighting with the lady and finally grabbing a seat on a plane, he meets Mr. Wednesday. And Ian McShane does an amazing job being Mr. Wednesday. He's pulls off the poetic and chaos and suaveness of a god, I guess. That works, right? He immediately starts trying to bond with Shadow. And of course, Shadow is kind of like, I'll talk to you because you're the first nice person I've met since prison, but I just want to get home. But getting home's not gonna be an easy thing for Shadow. Now, I skipped the first prophetic dream that Shadow had. In it, he's just walking through the bone orchard. He sees the world tree and the universe kind of sprawling all around it, and he gets woken up by just the tree branches' hands just slapping him. On the airplane, he falls asleep after talking, Mr. Wednesday takes him, and he has another prophetic dream where the buffalo comes out from behind the world tree, eyes flaming, and it tells him to believe. And then he wakes up, and everyone on the plane is gone, including Mr. Wednesday. Now, before I move on from the prophetic dreams, I think I need to point out some key things from the airplane scene. In it, Mr. Wednesday tells Shadow kind of a big indicator of who he is. He tells him the trick to befuddling people is to get them to believe in you. Of course, Shadow takes that as, the way to pull off a lie is to be a believable liar. But Mr. Wednesday needs faith to survive. This is his whole reason for bringing Shadow into the mix, for starting a war with the new gods. Now let's move on to everyone's favorite sex goddess, Bilquis. She only has one chapter in the book, but I'm excited to say that her role is going to be expanded in the series, which for some people might not be exciting if they were very terrified of the scene where she literally swallowed a man through her vagina. The show gets back to Shadow, and he's made it to the Crocodile Bar, which, there he runs into his favorite person ever, Mr. Wednesday, and yet again he offers him a job, which kind of drives Shadow a little bonkers, and he flips out on him. But Mr. Wednesday's not the type of guy to give up, so he kind of lets things take their course, throws him the newspaper that says, hey, not only did your wife die, your best friend died in that same car accident. Oof. As Shadow's kind of sinking this all in and trying to figure out how to get home for the funeral and eat food, Mad Sweeney walks into the bar and immediately starts chatting up Shadow. he kind of straight off the bat says he's a leprechaun. And Shadow's like, well, aren't you a little tall for a leprechaun? Because he's... Matt Sweeney takes a lot of offense to that and says it's very stereotypical to think that all leprechauns are short. And so, I know, it's bad. I'm half Irish, but I can't even do it right. And then Matt Sweeney shows off his coin tricks, which, as you can tell from the beginning of the episode, Shadow likes his coin tricks. But he only knows simple human ones, I guess. And Matt Sweeney's kind of just plucking gold coins out of the air and drops them all into a cup. So of course Shadow's like, well, can you teach me? Matt Sweeney's response as a true Irishman, or Irish god, I'll fight you for it. Shadow turns that down because why the fuck would he fight someone for a coin trick? But Matt Sweeney doesn't stop and finds a way to nag Shadow into a fight by insulting his wife. They get into a full-out bloody brawl, and Shadow ends up winning, which makes, Mr. Wednesday very happy. He's got the right guy for the job. And Shadow takes the gold coin that he was promised by Matt Sweeney. Matt Sweeney and Shadow kind of have this love-hate relationship, a bromance, if you will. So they still kind of get along, even though Matt Sweeney just likes to fight. So I think Shadow understands that. And then Shadow ends up finally taking the job from Mr. Wednesday. His only caveat is that he needs to get to the funeral. Probably shouldn't be his only caveat, but I guess he's stuck in a bind, so you gotta do what you gotta do. Unbeknownst to him, though, Mr. Wednesday offers Shadow 3 shots of mead, which is the drink of the gods for the Vikings. And that's his way of sealing the deal with Shadow. And Shadow kind of probably just takes it as a phrase and not realizing that, yeah, he's kind of really entering a contract here with a fucking god. So Mr. Wednesday, while seeming like a bad guy, is actually pretty good, and he fulfills his promise of making sure Shadow gets to the funeral, which is sort of a shit show. At the funeral, he learns from his deceased best friend's wife that Shadow's wife, Laura, died with the best friend's cock in her mouth. Yeah. That really, really sucks for Shadow. I'm sorry. Not a fun thing to find out, or a great place to find out. But despite finding out this horrible news about his wife cheating on him and then dying the way she did, Shadow still loves Laura. He can't really get rid of that, and you can't fault him for it, I don't think. And as the best friend of the deceased guy, she's not really gonna matter much for the rest of the series, Audrey, she admits that she's always been jealous of Shadow and Laura's relationship. The way Shadow's always looked at Laura, he truly loved her. And this isn't just some throwaway thing, because if you read the books, you know it's definitely a very strong love that's not gonna let go. Even though Laura might be buried 6 feet underground. But thanks to a certain gold coin, that's not gonna last long. So throughout the episode, we've only met old gods. At the end of the episode, Shadow gets kidnapped by the new god, Technical Boy. Technical Boy wants to know what Mr. Wednesday's plans are, which kind of indicates that despite the new gods acting all cocky and thinking they're now running, I guess, humanity, they're still kind of afraid of the old gods. They still have a place, and they've had a place for hundreds of years. But despite Technical Boy threatening Shadow's life and straight up saying that they will delete him from the world, Shadow still pretty much says fuck you to Technical Boy. You know, he might not exactly trust Mr. Wednesday, but he's got a job now and he's going to be loyal to it. And Technical Boy is a douche. Straight up fucking asshole. I mean, I'm sure the actor is lovely, but like, this character, douche. So Technical Boy throws Shadow out of his digitized limo and leaves the henchmen to go beat the shit out of Shadow. And then they hang him up by a fucking noose, which was actually foreshadowed in the beginning of the episode when he's at the prison. So Shadow really needs to start paying attention to everything he fucking sees, because it's gonna pop up. Also, everything he hears. Listen, Shadow. The henchmen hang him up, and as Shadow's struggling to breathe, all of a sudden the henchmen start getting ripped apart. Body parts flying, spines and skulls, and it's literally just a land of blood. A body farm, if you will. And the mysterious figure that's doing this cuts Shadow down. But this show ends not showing who his savior is. But think back on that golden coin, and it might be a strong hint as to who's helping Shadow get out of this bind. So that's it for the pilot episode, which I think was fantastic, fucking awesome. There's not a whole lot to discuss since the first episode, but I feel like we're really gonna kind of jump into the war right away between the old gods and the new gods, which the whole series is about, but I'm really fucking excited to get to. Besides that, I really hope we see Loki more. Jonathan DeHooker and his ghetto white boy version of Loki is fun. Definitely a deviation from the Marvel version of Loki that we're used to. I'm excited to see more of the imagery. They're really kind of knocking it out of the park, and so I really hope you join me next week, and we'll have more to discuss about American Gods. So hit me up on the socials if you enjoy this, want to see more, want me to discuss something different. You can find me on Twitter @StoryInTheEnd. Bye.